guys, this is Mrs. Christmas. I've been missing for like 2 days. This is the third week of quarantine time. As you can see, I'm losing my voice a little bit. All that talking online does it to you. However, I am here because I want to read a story to you. So yes, I'm going to be reading a story to you, the adult, the parent, the teacher, you. This is the story I'm going to be reading, Through the Cracks. I hope you just sit back, relax, and enjoy. The Cracks by Carolyn, Sollman, Barbara Emmons, and Judith Paolini. Hey, here I am, down here. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath after climbing that but you were gonna turn the page and you didn't even see me, and I'm the one who's supposed to be telling the story. Oh, my name is Stella, by the way, and it's a story that you gotta hear, because kids like you and kids like me, all these kids are shrinking, see? And I don't think anyone even notices. Oh well, anyway, now you can turn the page. This is where I live. It seems okay, but there is a lot wrong here. Look closely or you'll miss something just like you almost missed me. At school, you know. I could hardly wait to go to school when I was little. Well, little like when I was younger, not little like now that I've shrunk. I was so excited on my first day. I didn't need any alarm to wake me up. No way. I felt so big and so important and so full of wonderful ideas that I thought I would burst just like a balloon. School would be an adventure where I could do anything and everything. But something went wrong. You can see there are a lot of problems at my school. Some grown-ups say it's because kids just don't want to learn, but I know that's not true. Just look at Christopher. He's the kid on the next page. The same thing is happening to him that happened to me. Christopher has been getting smaller every day. He sits at his desk and he watches his teacher write on the board. He watches the letters and numbers being written and erased. Boring, he thinks. Boring, boring, boring. Christopher doesn't think of anything except for how boring everything is. He is so bored, he doesn't even notice he's shrinking. You know, Christopher is really smart, but his grades aren't that great. Weird, huh? He's just shrunk too much, and now he's about to fall right through the cracks of the schoolroom floor. Christopher, I said. You've fallen through the cracks. Christopher was a little slow to answer. Huh? Asked Christopher. Do I know you? Did you say something? Say something, I replied. I've watched your sneakers all morning. Your shoestrings glow in the dark. You look pretty bored in class, but now you're out of there. In answer to your other question, you know me. I'm Stella. I think he was trying to register my name in his memory when suddenly his eyes got big. Wait a minute, I am out of class? Christopher looked like he was about to scream with joy. Awesome! Yeah, it's awesome, all right, but not like you're thinking. After all, I've been here for a while. Look around. Do you really want to be here? I sat back and watched Christopher take in the place. The gloomy walls, the silence that made huge echoes of shouts or crying, and the long dark shadows, if they really were just shadows. Falling through the cracks felt creepy and lonely. The other kids down here keep to themselves. That's why I made up my mind to make Christopher my friend before he got scared or mean or quit talking like the others. See what you mean, Christopher admitted. Looking around, he looked up at all those dangling feet of kids who were shrinking, the kids who would end up falling through the cracks, just like Christopher and me. He looked back at the children in the lower grades and wondered why a kindergartner was already waist deep on his first day of school. He looked ahead at the children in the upper grades and noticed that even some of the smart kids were falling, beginning to slip through. He looked at all the kids who had already fallen. Then he looked at me. "This place has some problems," he said. "But going back where I just came from isn't the answer." "Look," I began. "I've been here for a long time. I know what it's like here, and I also know that school doesn't have to be boring." Christopher looked doubtful at that point. I think if we're willing to do a little exploring, we could find that there's more to school than sitting still and listening to our teacher go on and on." "Maybe," said Christopher as he thought it over. "Hey, why haven't you explored before now?" I knew he would ask that. I was afraid to tell him. I thought he might laugh at me, but I had to be honest. I don't like being in the dark alone. I don't even know where exploring will lead us. Christopher was quiet as he thought it over. He looked over and around again. Finally, he looked over at me and said, "I don't like shrinking or being bored. Let's explore." It wouldn't be easy, but making a friend helped. I couldn't be sure, but I thought Christopher and I were beginning, slowly, we were beginning to grow. As we moved along, it was dark, but in the distance, we could see the faintest of lights. There were noises too, voices, but we couldn't quite make out the words, and laughter that made us feel sad instead of happy. I almost stopped right then and there. I think Christopher was afraid too, but he had to keep growing. We crawled toward the nearest light. I expected it to get brighter as we got closer, but it didn't. It was a window covered with dirt and cobwebs. "Gross," said Christopher as he tried to wipe a spot clean enough to see through. Christopher squeezed himself against one side that I could see, too. We were outside of a classroom, and we didn't like what we saw. Or here. We looked in other windows where more students were shrinking and the teachers weren't having fun much either. "Christopher," I said once as we watched a group of students all staring at one blackboard, "does this remind you of anything?" "I don't think so. Why?" Christopher asked. "Because it reminds me of television. All those kids are just watching. No one is doing anything." I always liked to watch TV, but this was too much. Just watching even TV is pretty boring. Christopher smiled at me. "I think we are growing, Stella." "I think you're right, Christopher." We were growing too. When I first fell through the cracks, I thought the noises in the distance might be monsters, and I thought the lights beyond the shadows were raging fires. In other words, I thought the worst. But I was wrong. The monsters were fear and silence. The distant noises weren't so scary when we got closer. They were voices, students and teachers talking and planning together. We weren't used to so much talk in the classroom. Not talk behind the teacher's back, but kids talking about their work and sharing ideas. Christopher and I began to seek out the brightest and loudest windows. A good thing, too. We weren't so small anymore, and the brighter rooms had the biggest windows. Sometimes we couldn't believe it was school. Stella, look at that class, Christopher pointed through a window. And it was amazing. I thought at first that it was art. Then I didn't know what to think. What class is this? Asked Christopher. You know, I think it's history, he said. But I never thought it could look like so much fun. That wasn't the only one. What class is this? Asked Christopher. Christopher, come over here. They're dancing. I had wandered to another window, another class. We still couldn't believe it. I never thought I'd say this, but school isn't boring after all. Christopher was shaking his head as he spoke. If I were in there, I'm not sure what I'd do first. Christopher and I don't see a single shrinking student over here. I was looking in the English class at that point. No kidding, he asked as he hovered over. No kidding. Seeing, we saw millions of ways to do things, to learn things. We saw all kinds of possibilities and all kinds of people with new and exciting ideas. Everyone was working together. Some people were good with numbers, others were good with words, and still others were good with pictures. Hey Stella, something is happening. Christopher was right. The light was getting brighter and I felt different. I think we're growing, Christopher. I think you're right, Stella. It was true. Christopher and I found a way out of darkness. We were no longer on the outside looking in. Christopher saw himself drawing and looking through a microscope, and he was back. And me, I taped an interview with my grandfather, and I was writing a historical narrative. I was back too. I like school now, and so does Christopher. We're not just watchers anymore. We're thinking, not shrinking. This is where I live. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Proverbs 29:18. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that story. It's one of my favorite stories. Actually, when I first began teaching, I actually ended up picking up this book, and it's written by Carolyn Sollman, Barbara Emmons, and Judith Paolini. If you know a teacher, know a parent or a student, this book is for any of us. It reminds us that we need to pay attention to how we're educating our youth. We need to pay attention to how we are instilling confidence in our children. And it is definitely a book that I wanted to take out to share with you at a time such as this. Boys and boys and girls, women, men, children, everyone who's listening, please know that this is a story that I've read for you just to enlighten you. I know it's really hard teaching your children at home. I've said this from my first video and I will say this to my last. I'm doing the same thing, teaching at home, parenting at home, being a homeschool teacher and an educator at the same time is hard work. So you're not alone. All the tips that I've been giving you, try them. I'm trying them every day, but I'm at the same time still trying to do my job as a mom and as just a person. You can't forget about yourself, and it's really hard sometimes to balance. So I just wanted to share this story with you because I don't want your children to fall between the cracks, even at home. And it's an enlightening story. You might see a child that might be home with you right now who seems bored with their classwork, who seems so disinterested in learning. And if you do see that in your child, take those notes and see what you can do with those notes and enhance it. Encourage them. Find new innovative ways to trigger those things that are kind of keeping them down. Enlighten him or her. Parents, teachers, work together. Reach out to your child's teacher. Teachers, if you have children in your class who struggles in your class, reach out to those parents because they're probably having the same problems at home. So we have to be here for one another. I just wanted to share this story because I do not want any boy or girl out there falling between the cracks. Parents, we can also fall between the cracks, and we might get tired and frustrated and have all these emotions about what's going on. But at the end of the day, our children need us. We are their first educators before even being in the classroom. So we have a responsibility to do, and we have to make sure that we do not allow them at home to fall between the cracks. Get those books out, have them read, do all that you can to educate your child. Make it fun, okay? Do not use books or any educational materials as a punishment, because you will just keep that negative energy going in your child. So please, let's be more responsible leaders in our homes and make sure our children are not falling between the cracks. And when they get back to school, I think they are going to have a new appreciation for the classroom, a new appreciation for that teacher, a new appreciation for those friends. So we have the opportunity right now to give them and instill in them kindness and a joy and a love and a passion for education and learning. And sometimes when you take things away, you miss those things, right? So, have those conversations with your children that, look, staying home every day is okay, but how much do you miss school? Open up those conversations, I get those ideas going in their heads of, what are those things you're missing? What do you miss about this friend? And, what would you be doing right now in school? So you want to just kind of keep them going as much as you can. I know you're tired. I'm tired. Listen, I'm tired too. But guys, we are doing the best we can, and that is all we can do. All right? So hang in there. Do not let them fall between the cracks. And I will see you soon, or talk to you soon.